Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. I am Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small, and happy International Women's Day for all of you women out there, and for all of you men who treat your ladies, your mothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your friends, your best friends. Am I missing out anybody?
Thank you.
Treat all of them right.
What was the end of that statement? Treat all of
daughters,
them right.
Daughters, forgot daughters.
So yes, indeed, happy International Women's Day. Now, we're not going to be cliche and celebrate women's first here in Transvago, as is what others might do, but we thought that we will do typical talking point, and that is the debate as to whether or not, well, let's go with what Sean said. What is treating women right? Because the theme for International Women's Day this year is Embrace Equity. Now, equality may exist, but does equity exist? Well, to give you a better understanding of the difference between equality and equity, we have this video from the United Nations office from Australia. Let's take a look at this.
Article 1. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Sounds pretty good to me. But if we are all equal, then why aren't we all treated equally? And is treating every person exactly the same always the best thing to do? What I'm actually talking about here is the difference between equality and equity. They sound almost the same, but these words mean slightly different things. First up, what is equality? Equality is recognizing that as human beings, we all have the same value. This means we all have the same rights. We should all receive the same level of respect and have the same access to opportunities. This isn't just a nice idea. There are actual laws supporting this, so it's kind of a big deal. If we know equality is about treating everyone in the same way, then we can think of equity as everyone achieving equal outcomes. Okay, it's like this. We all have the same value and deserve a good life, but we all start from a different place. And we are all wonderfully different and experience the world in our own unique way. It's because of these differences that we sometimes need to be treated differently for us all to live safely, healthily, happily, and equally. This means that we need to look at what individual people and communities need in order to achieve equity. So, while treating everyone the same may seem like a lovely idea, it may not always result in achieving equity because we're not all the same. In fact, sometimes treating everyone the same way can be a disadvantage. Like expecting everyone to read the same book written in French. Even though some people may not understand French, that could be pretty confusing. Think of it like this. Equality is giving everyone the same ladder to pick these juicy mangoes. And equity is recognizing that not everyone can pick the mango using the same ladder. That's better. The mangoes are our opportunities and stuff. Sometimes we need to make choices and take actions that help protect our community, like washing your hands and wearing a mask when you visit someone really sick. Even though we might not be the ones in danger of getting sick, by doing something small, we can help look after everyone. So, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you look like, what you believe, think, or do. Every human has the same value and is deserving of the same mangoes. Opportunities. Creating a world that is fair for everyone is up to all of us. We can help by looking out for each other, showing one another respect, and thinking about the different ways others may experience the world.
So, if you're still a bit confused as to what equality versus equity is, well, equality is where everyone actually are given the resources to have similar outcomes. But Equity is recognizing that each person comes from different backgrounds, probably suffers from different circumstances, and are given the adequate or necessary resources so that there is an equal outcome.
See, that sounds fine in theory when you say it like that. The problem is, and the irony is, the example of picking the mangoes is actually going against that. The example says it wants to give people equal opportunity to pick the mangoes, and that's what equality is, right? And I agree with that. The problem is, once you try to dictate that the outcomes have to be equal, it takes away a whole lot of other considerations that are just natural to the human condition, on top of the fact that you have to ask exactly how are you going to enforce or put in place this equity in an ethical way. And usually there's a lot of unethical practices that end up being done in order to enforce an outcome.
So let's bring it back to the question then. Does equality exist in Trinidad and Tobago? Because if equality does not exist, then you can't have equity, at least according to the United Nations.
I will argue that equity generally exists nowhere. In theory, what people want equity to be does not exist. One of the main reasons why is at the end of the day, you could put all of the systems in place to try to force it, but you still have to deal with the fact that human beings are individuals. They have their own individual desires and wants and preferences. And when you're talking about gender, I would hope that those of us in TNT would still recognize the fact that, look, there will be things that men are more prone to prefer and things that women are more prone to prefer. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have some women who might want to do what is traditionally seen as masculine activities. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the whole idea with equality is they should have the opportunity to pursue those things, whether it's a masculine hobby, a masculine job, even if it's to live a somewhat masculine lifestyle. They should have the opportunity, but to force it, to say things have to be, and then what exactly is the status that you want to reach? Do you want to reach 50-50? Well, again, that means that you need to find 50%. You have to find enough candidates on both sides for whatever you're looking at. Do we look at it for all jobs, for all circumstances?
So if we are to make arguments, there's so many factors to consider when it is that you're arguing this. For example, here in Trinidad and Tobago specifically, let's take a look at the education system. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody can argue that here in TNT, everybody's given an equal opportunity to have an education. But the outcomes may be different. For example, here in TNT, females actually dominate the education system. In fact, over the course of decades, it's shown that females actually outperform males in SEA, actually receive or awarded scholarships from the secondary level. And believe it or not, at the University of the West Indies, 65% of new entrants are roughly female. Take a look at the workforce, for example. There was a lot of disparity in the workplace, but roughly 60% of the female population now participate in the workforce, while roughly 81% of the male population works. But there's a thing. The disparity is actually closing. Because decades ago, those numbers were much lower. You had a lot more females taking part in the home, but now you're seeing the opposite taking place. Not that they're not taking part in the home, but they're actually going out into the workforce.
The irony, of course, is Minister Cujo recently said, like, she made a call to men, we need you to be fathers, to be productive, etc. I actually have no issue with women dominating academics and dominating certain fields where they just naturally want to be more involved in. A lot of people go to the stereotype, well, most nurses are women. Well, and if men want to be nurses, nothing wrong with that. But it's not just nurses. I think the medical profession, in general, I think with regards to doctors, not just nurses, is slowly but surely becoming more female-dominated. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the disparity does not bother me.
There are issues with that. Because a study in 2016 showed that in terms of management levels, mid-management levels, and executive management levels, it's still male-oriented and still male-centric. And actually, females made roughly US $22,000 a year working, while males in the same positions with similar qualifications actually made double that amount. Yes, that's here in Trinidad and Tobago. That's according to a study from the ILO. Now, interestingly,
in the same positions or just
same positions
or that general level?
Same positions
so we'll go
with similar
specific
qualifications,
industry.
right? So that's the study by the ILO. But on top of that, up until 2018, we were still debating here in Trinidad and Tobago whether or not we should legislate organizations to actually have daycare centers so that mothers could still work, or whether or not there should be paternity leave or maternity leave should be granted longer periods because there are no places for women to actually have their babies while they try to work.
Now, technically, single fathers would run into the same problem. So I think having daycare at work is not a woman's issue. I think that's just a single parent issue, whatever the gender is. And if maternity leave is given more weight than paternity leave, I can't really argue against that, because as a man, I'm not going to be physically recovering from a very physically demanding, and it's not just like a few hours. In some cases, it could be days that a woman is like in labor waiting for the baby to essentially come out. So it's tricky, right?
The argument that you're making, if I'm trying to understand this correctly, because we've gone all over the place. So the argument that you're making is that equality or equity, depending on what definition you use, is how the individual views it.
Well, my thing is, look, I'm already pointing out to areas where the outcomes are not equal in preference to women, and I don't have a problem with it. I think that generally speaking, it's tricky when you want to try to say, well, we want these outcomes to be equal, and then where does it end, and how do you make it so? It goes beyond with regards to like employment opportunities and educational opportunities when we go to race and things like that. But we don't want to get too much into that. Let's stick it to men and women in the workforce. If there is a case where in the same position, right, with the same qualifications and generally the same experience, right? The woman can have a little bit less, it doesn't have to be like, but generally, right? And the pay has a significant disparity between a male in that position and a woman in that position. That should be wrong. I'm surprised that's allowed. I think generally speaking, most instances of the wage gap is based off of taking an average as opposed to going in specifics with regards to checking wages. There should not be a disparity. I'm surprised that it isn't illegal. However, some discrepancy can exist just depending on the culture of where you're looking at and how men and women work differently, and how work is seen in the culture and what is demanded of you in that position. That's understandable if there's some slight discrepancy. If you're junior to the role, you take more time off, et cetera, okay, you do less overtime. All right, I get it. If it's about overtime, well, that's a whole other separate story. But if there's a big discrepancy, yeah, I would say that needs to be looked into and corrected.
Now, the good news is that here in Trinidad and Tobago, the government has made some level of effort, at least when it comes to the workforce, because they have actually ratified things like the International Labour Organization Conventions, the Industrial Relations Act, and even to international labour standards. So that's good. But there are still many areas one might argue that equality or equity does not exist. Now, one might argue that in order for equity to exist, equality has to. But then again, the question I started this debate with is the question I will end it with. Does that really exist?
With regards to which?
Here in Trinidad and Tobago,
because
not specific to any.
There's race, there's gender.
Not specific to
sexuality.
Not specific to any one thing, but we are speaking about International Women's Day, so I'm not going to go all over the place with that, because then this debate will go on for the entire show. So it's really up for you, the viewer, to decide. It might be from a personal standpoint or a personal opinion, or it might be an argument used with things that are actually in place or not in place. I'll tell you what, perhaps later on in this program, when we open up the phone lines, you, the viewer, can share your thoughts and opinions with us.
Just to answer it, I think the short answer is there will always be certain things, because men and women are mostly the same. You know, we both have 2 legs, 2 arms. With regards to psychologically, there's a lot that's similar. There are differences though, and I think where those differences do exist, that's where we should have the same rights, we should have the same opportunities, but like again, women could get pregnant, and there's a whole host of things that need to be done to help facilitate that men don't necessarily demand for. And then now, with regards to certain jobs and work, in times of war, men will get drafted. Should women get drafted? I mean, it's an interesting debate, but I don't necessarily see where it has to be like 100% equal down the line. Something should account for the differences between the two. Once the rights and the opportunities that are afforded, once there isn't like some cushy high-paying job that's men only, or women only, but usually right now we're talking about men only. Once that doesn't exist, that's the sort of things that we need to guard against.
I think all you just done in that entire thing is emphasize once more what the definition of equity is. At least that's what I...
Equality, not equity.
No,
Equality.
I that equity.
That's not equity. That's not equity.
If you are considering that people are different and that there are different circumstances and different backgrounds, and then you're trying to say, all right, we are considering all those things, and in order to have an equal outcome...
No. I said they have the opportunity. They should not be bigoted to not get the job because of their gender, sex orientation, race, whatever. But they still have to earn it. They have to be the best candidates.
I think we're going to have to look at that video once more. But I'll tell you what, we'll take a break now. We'll let Sean look at the video, and when we return, maybe we might be welcoming our guest this morning. Stay tuned.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is one of the most common issues faced by women of reproductive age in Trinidad and Tobago?
So we see more patients with polycystic if they're obese, but there are the small-billed patients who also have polycystic ovaries.
What other treatment options are there available for these girls? What's Up Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Well, welcome back to the program. Now, joining Sean and I this morning once more, well, I haven't been able to do this for a while, but let me introduce Miss Karen Nunes to share. She's with us via Zoom. Good morning, Karen, and happy International Women's Day.
Well, thank you so much, both to you and Sean, and you, of course, Keaton. And you know I missed you. You know that I told you that off air. And you were missed by others. Not to say that Sean did not do an excellent job, but I guess you all are the dynamic duo. So there you go. And good morning to your viewers.
Good morning, Karen.
Anyway, I want to tell you something. I was told something yesterday, and I think the source is a good enough source. Said to me, you know, WSN, and this is every day, not just today, every day. They say, you know, we listening to WSN. That is the talk show people listen to now. So just letting you know that.
Well, that's good. That means we're doing something right. But Karen, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. Yes, I did miss this very much actually. And I'm only glad to be here to have this conversation. Now, I understand that, and I was reading the article that Professor Brinsley Samaru, well, he's alluded to the fact that, well, he sees it as a fact that cartels control food production here in Trinidad and Tobago. And precisely what does he mean by that? He says, well, we're not able to take agriculture or food production seriously because many a times those who have to shape policy are actually funded by those who are controlling the flow, the production, and the distribution of food. Karen, is this just a secret, or is this something that we all knew and we had to wait until somebody, such as Professor Samaru, stated it publicly?
Well, I would just say, speaking for myself, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that regard, yes, you're right. It has been spoken about. We have spoken about it on several occasions on this show. I'm sure on other media, it has also been discussed. I actually wrote an article, of course, may have got lost in the wind, but it was about 2 years ago about food security, dealing with very much the same issues. But you're right. When someone like Professor Brinsley Samaru, who is a highly respected and highly regarded person, who, as far as we know, maybe he was involved in politics many years ago, but he's not known to be political at all. He has kept a very low profile, not one drawing attention to himself. And he is a person that when he speaks, I think people feel that he does not have an agenda. And when that comes from a source, the message and the messenger. So I think the messenger in this case was extraordinarily important. But this is a matter that is really worrying because I actually went and looked up the word cartel. To make sure that I didn't misunderstand, because he would not have misunderstood what he was saying, being an intellectual that he is. And one of the definitions, which I think he probably was referencing, was the one that says a combination of independent commercial or industrial enterprises designed to limit competition or fix prices. So I suspect that is what, and I just want to say also, whilst he focus on rice, and that was more of the focus of his discussion, I do not think he limited it just to competition in that particular field. And what was very telling to me, which is, you may say I'm going off track, but it comes to a lot of the other issues, and he did reference it. It's really up to the government to create the policy, not only to allow competition and fair competition within the country, but something that we have also spoken about, and many people are speaking about more and more so, is creating real entrepreneurial opportunities for people in Trinidad and Tobago. And if you're operating a cartel, as he explained it, then what you're really doing is ensuring that there's no competition, and those at the bottom remain at the bottom. So I think there was one of the presenters that actually referred to a biblical reference of the hewers of stone, or whatever the expression, but I mean that, some reference like that. But what I think, to combine them, what I'm saying is, it's something that we have spoken about, is opportunity for entrepreneurial opportunities for those who went to America in search of a land of opportunity, who came to Trinidad. Many of your forefathers, Keaton, would have done that and created great opportunity. But it's not ability, it's opportunity. And I think what he's saying is that they are crowded out, and that the government, by its absence of taking any meaningful step, is in fact facilitating something that is not good for the country.
One of the things that I find interesting and potentially telling is the fact that, look, part of opportunities as well as businessmen and investors will look for new opportunities. And when COVID started, the UN immediately, I think from almost the very beginning in 2020, was concerned about food security around the world, right? And before COVID, we had an issue with foreign exchange. So we had an issue with imports, which means we had an issue with regards to ensuring that we could have enough foreign exchange to bring in all the food that we need to bring in the country because we are food insecure. What I don't understand is, and now with the food inflation that we're seeing pushed from international prices trickling down to here, these three things happened in succession, and I don't necessarily understand why private business in the country is not looking towards local production and investing in local production, or investing more into local production, because at this point, I think it's a matter of when, not if, we will see low foreign exchange, so importing will be difficult, high international food prices that we might not be able to bear, and we need some sort of alternative. If the government is not going to do it, but the potential for private is there, and we're not even seeing, at least, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's some, outside of those who've already done it, maybe there's some investment group or project that we don't know about, but I'm not seeing the private business putting safeguards just for themselves, because if a lot of their importation of food, they have that as a revenue stream, that is at risk if foreign exchange dries up and if the international price of food gets too high.
Just a couple of things on that particular note, and I'll come back to you, Karen, in a moment with one particular question. But you also have to understand that there are only very few within at least the private sector who could probably invest. They probably have the capital to invest. One particular company actually thought, listen, you know what, we are going to invest in food and agriculture, but we're going to invest in a berry farm, which I did not see the need for at all. I thought there were so many other things that you can look at, but I don't know. I really don't know. But there are very few private companies who can actually afford to invest in such industries. But coming back to what you just mentioned, Karen, using Professor Brindley's, what he alluded to, he's suggesting that you have governments that are being funded by these cartels. So then how is it that you expect any government to actually create policy or at least change policy when it is that they are being directed or directly funded by these cartels? I mean, you cannot expect a different outcome. You cannot expect change or any sort of differences or improvements. You are just going to expect talk.
Right, and thank you very much for that intervention. And I just want to clarify my position. Of course, whenever I see things, it's always going to be colored. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, but certainly going to be affected from a macro position and one of a government, because a government has a social contract with its people. A government is not private sector. Government is there to allow private sector to thrive, but the government is also there to ensure that all the, I don't think Dr. Hussain will take offense to this, because I know he's one of the persons that speaks very much about how much of our energy rents go into these social programs and so on. So I think what Dr. Brinsley Samuel, because he was a minister himself, he was in government himself. So I think to a large extent, what, in my respectful opinion, is what he was trying to telegraph was it's not that the private sector should not be allowed, but you are not allowing other persons, you're crowding them out. And as the social contract with the country is not only creating food security, it is creating, because I don't know if you remember, but Hilaire, the central bank governor, I think about a year or so ago, said that we import over $5 billion worth of food, and 80% of our food is imported. I don't know if you know, as you have rightly said, Europe suffered from it in terms of inflation, prices going up. Yes, they did. And America seems to have gotten control of that with all of the things with the Ukraine war and food supply chain issues and so on. But if you look at countries like, I'm going to use the country because it was the country that was highlighted, Lebanon. They say 50% of their population is living under the poverty line. They say that the reason why Lebanon, and this is in the UNDP report, not Karen Tishare's report, by the way, so you can read it and anyone can. You say usually when a country reaches a point where they have to turn off the electricity, they have ships waiting offshore that can't deliver the much needed oil and gas and also the fertilizers because they weren't growing food, right? He said usually it's as a result of war conditions, and Lebanon has had its own civil wars over time. It used to be called the Mediterranean. Somebody told me the Switzerland, somebody called me the Paris of the Middle East, but you understand what it is. It was highly respected. And what they have said in the report, and I think this gentleman from CNN said it, and it's in the report, the reason why it is in that condition it is because of it is endemic corruption within the country, in the control of the government, and that 8 families control the economy and the finances of the country. In fact, people have not, the lira is worth nothing. And those who want to go in the bank, I don't know if it's eased up a lot, they literally can't get the money. So let us stop pretending that we don't understand the problem. If you are going to, no offense, because I don't know who owns it, but how could you, when the Hilaire has said on March 3rd, just a few days ago, at an Amplia meeting, said that our foreign exchange reserves are in dire straits. That is why Lebanon that's why a lot of these countries are a problem, because Venezuela, all these countries, because they were importing all their food and they never thought a rainy day would come, and it came. And when it came and they got all these bans and so on, no one would trade with them unless you had a US dollar. And Hilaire, Governor Hilaire, at a meeting with AmCham, and both AmCham and himself said that our foreign exchange reserves about 6.8 billion. It has not moved, and he said it's being. He said it. He said it has been propped up by over 1.8 billion drawdown from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, of which only 354 million have been replaced. He says they have said he is telling you that the sudden increase in our revenue was a factor of what was going on in the world with the oil and gas, which has collapsed. You know that the governor, the minister, no offense, minister, but you do it every year. So that if I were a foreign investor, I'm not investing in this country because there's no certainty and there's no confidence. Because how could you get it wrong every single year? So as usual, he said that our gas prices were going to be $6 per MMBTU. And you know it's trading between 1 and 2 something, and I don't think it's going to move. And even with the oil prices going up to about 80, when he put it to 92.50, we don't have a refinery. The Guyanese say they don't want our refinery. It's all rusted and rotten after 5 years. They say they're building their own refinery. You know, you ever heard the poem, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink? Trinidad has no natural gas. We have mature fields. So Atlantic LNG offered voluntary. Look at the pattern. You have to follow where the story is telling you. If Atlantic LNG, which is really our savior, had to eventually admit the trade one had to be closed because they had no gas. They're sending home people. They have the same restructured 2, 3, and 4. You just read it in the papers. And they said, they put it all in nice words, but they actually said they don't have the gas production. So if they don't have the gas production, and LNG is number one on the list now because that's where you're going to get your money now, the downstream industries where they're getting their feedstock, and you saw Methanex prices collapse. And the point I'm making is, I don't know what price NGC was selling gas to the downstream industry, but I don't think it was $2. So if it is that NGC probably is not making any money and gas is that low, it means that the products that are produced from the feedstock from NGC, their prices are collapsing. So to give an end to all of what I've said is we cannot talk about the private sector. I remember when I was in government, just to say this, and I didn't understand it when the Prime Minister said it to me because I was not from politics, you know, I didn't come from a political background. But he would say to me, God rest his soul, but he did say to me that he said, you know, the private sector in Trinidad is not prepared to take chances or risks. They are not risk takers. All the risks must be taken by the government. So what we are seeing now, and what Prince Samuel has intimated and telegraphed as best he can, is that this government is not in charge of our economy. There is a cartel who has their own personal interests that they are pursuing, and it is not in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago. And the government, for reasons best known to itself, have done nothing to stop that. And we are in serious trouble. And what they have said finally on that is that since we know the volatility of oil and gas, and yes, they're not going to be able to turn to the green energy that they thought they could have turned to more quickly, they still have trillions coming from Guyana. They still have trillions coming from Venezuela. And Qatar and United States also provided it. And there's a geopolitical war going on. We are price takers. What are we going to end up like Lebanon?
Well, we have to take a break now, Karen, but I will conclude by this. Though there have been great strides or good news recently with respect to the oil and gas sector and the Dragon gas field in Venezuela, leave it at that. You can't drink nor can you eat gas, and you cannot drink nor could you eat oil. So it's what we're doing, and it's how we're proceeding, how we're going forward. I think you pointed this out yesterday, Sean, that as much as we have credit for energy right now, at least there's some good news with respect to it. It's a downsize with respect to our progress in the agricultural and food industry.
There is no certainty that the war will stabilize and reduce, right? So more importantly, not only could this war flare up even further, but other situations, it doesn't have to be a war, it could be some other natural disaster, some other emergency. We're not out of the woods yet. The world was rich before COVID. We weren't doing so well, but the world was rich. And look how the world has been brought to its knees. So we have to be prepared for a rainy day. Are we making any moves on any front, whether it's government, private, I don't care who, at this point? Somebody show me a little bit of vision. And we have so many insurance companies. We don't have any risk assessment with regards to our food insecurity. Some of these risk assessors can't, the government can't say, hey, is it really that bad? And they could go, yeah, it probably is that bad. Because what are we going to do if something disrupts our food supply? We haven't faced that question yet.
I'll tell you what, we're not even prepared for the floods that come with a rainy day, let alone what might come after that. But we have to take a break now here on Talking Points, and when we return, the conversation continues. We'll be right back after this.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do in our country.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Hi guys, this is Vonna Bigford inviting you to Woman Power, a wonderful show celebrating women. Come out in your numbers. It's on March 8th, 2023 at Napa. It features a wonderful, wonderful cast. Come out and share energies with us as we celebrate women on International Women's Day.
The network of NGOs for the advancement of women and the Mayor of Port of Spain, Joel Martinez, presents Woman Power.
So let me tell you about real woman.
International Women's Day, Wednesday, 8th March at the Napa Auditorium. Come and enjoy Vonette Bigford, Joanna Chuckery, Mavis John, Alicia Jagasaw, Sharda Patasa, and Patrice Roberts. Special guest, David Rudder. Your host is Penny Gomez. Showtime, 7 p.m. Special reserve, 300. General admission, 250. Early bird tickets, if bought by this Saturday, March 4th. Cost $25 less. For more info, call 678-7549.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's International Women's Day today, so we have to ask the good lady of Talking Point. It's nice that we are able to ask this question. She was recently appointed as the new Commissioner of Police, Erla Christopher. It is a significant milestone in the country because the TTPS, I think, has been seen as somewhat of a male-dominated service or organization. So, of course, crime is an issue. We won't get into all those details. But generally, Karen, what do you think with regards to our new Commissioner of Police? And do you think that she has everything that she needs to succeed? Is she going in a good direction? Are you hopeful with what you've seen out of her so far?
So that's a long question, and I promise not to answer it in detail. So what I will say is this: I wish her all the best. I think it was a good thing. I'm not surprised. You know, we tend to mark our advancement by, unfortunately, what is happening in the Middle East. Trinidad is not that. We've had two presidents, one after the other, who are women. And I don't know if you saw the headline, and that's what I will just say, that 70% of the scholarships have been awarded to women, and that has been a trend. I taught for many years at either the law school or the faculty, and after the years, you realize that about 80% of the class is made up of women. So I think we are dealing with a different problem. I wish her well. She's been given Panadol. She does not have the antibiotics, so I'll end it on that. But I wish her the best.
That's a good way to put it, Karen. That's a good. I fear she might not have all of these things around her. It's not her fault.
Yeah, and one last thing, Keaton, if you will obtain it. Someone asked me the same question, and they were trying to saying it to me, and I do wish her well, by the way. I do wish her well. They were trying to make the analogy and say, well, look what she's doing. Look what she dealt with that warden, that traffic warden, and that officer, and she dealt with it immediately. So, well, there are a number of reasons why she should have. One, it was being videotaped fully, or I videotaped others. But more importantly, it was who was involved. This was not some known criminal or somebody well-known to the police who had a gun and so on in their present thing. This was a woman in a uniform doing a job to which she had been appointed by the government. And she was a woman. And she was being manhandled by a big burly man. So we do remember years ago, we're not calling names, God rest his soul, when there was a whole kerfuffle when this Japanese woman who died at Carnival, and there was a real response to that they tried to blame it on what she wore, she looked fit, kind of thing. That was the message people took out. So what Earl Christopher has done is absolutely right thing, and I wish her the best.
Certainly. Well, as we continue the conversation this morning, sorry, Sean, don't mean to cut you.
No, moving on. We wanted to switch gears. And I think this is a topic that I know, Karen, where the perspective of where you are originating from, but I do think that there's wider implications and it links into other situations like what we spoke about yesterday. And basically, generally, we're coming back to questions of transparency, and we're looking at conflicts of interest, or at least whether it's perceived or reality, but the fact of the matter is they're there, and how that causes us to question leadership, causes us to lose faith in leadership. In this particular case, Karen, your origin point, of course, is what you experienced with regards to the PNM internal elections, I believe.
Yeah, and you know, Kijan, you look so perplexed, as though, what is Sean talking about?
I'll tie it back. Don't worry, Keaton. I'll tie it back when Karen is finished.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. One, I do understand that people will say that, oh, yeah, she's talking now because she didn't win and so on. But I want to say the bigger picture is what it says about the leadership of this country and respect for the democratic systems upon which the not only was the government, but of course, it was a party election, the People's National Movement headed by Eric Williams, with many faults, many faults that there are, but one which is known to have that respect for. And what am I saying? I will try to make it as quick as I can. I had not intended to go up for the leadership, and I hesitated even to bring up this topic. When I was eventually approached, and I was then informed of all that had happened before, all the meetings and so on that we tried to do, like the EBC, etc., etc. The issue that arose was the two issues that arose, and for which I had wrote a letter in the papers, and they were written only after being written to personally to the Mr. Anthony Roberts, who I like very much. I think he's a gentleman. And the first issue, which you must question it, and I wondered if it ever reached the Privy Council, if they have a good answer, because up to yet, no one has been able to answer it. And that is, they said they were trying to mirror what the EBC did. So for the first time ever, because I checked with a person who would know, first time ever, when they confirmed that you were on the PNM electoral internal election list, say you came in as number 24 and your name was John Brown, and they confirmed that, you were then assigned a number, your name was then crossed out, but this was Italia. They then stamped the number 25 on your ballot and told you go and vote. Now, the fear that they had, and we never knew about it before, it came to our attention on the day of voting, when we were supposed to know before, and the fear that people had was that, but can't they go back and cross-reference number 25 and know who I voted for? And is that in keeping with our whole idea of having a secure and democratic process? And that was the fear that people have. And if and we asked for the answer, we have not given the answer, because what we were told verbally is, okay, when the ballot boxes are reached to be counted, we'll tear off the front page. So why did you do it in the first place? Why do you want to know? I never knew the EBC ever would do something like that. And to me, for you to put that list is not the list of the EBC, it's your list. So for you to know the number 25 in polling district, number so and so, this was, you could go back and look at that ballot and know Mary Jane Brown, or whatever I called her, or John, voted and did not vote for me, but voted him because they wanted to keep the URP job and CPF job. That is, I have never seen an assault on our democratic principles like that. And it would be interesting if this was to go to the Privy Council, because it's not about whether who win or not, but it's a question of whether were those elections valid. The second point, very quickly, was that when we had gone to the court, this is before we knew anything about this, this was about 10 days before, and we were questioning whether you could extend the election days from 1 day to essentially 9 days. I think Sean told me I did speak about it before, but the point here is this. When they reached in the court, And the issue of who's have custody himself, that cannot be, that's not right.
Of the information of the list of voters.
Yes, who's going to keep it for that time? Who's going to keep the ballot boxes for all those 9 until the 4th of December? It's himself, because the persons who going for the leadership and chairmanship were the very same people whose names could be in those boxes. And so then they decided at the hearing that the firm or panel, is it panel cool? I always get it mixed up, but it's a very well-respected firm, that they would have custody of the boxes, they would do the auditing and everything to satisfy the court of the independents. We waited. We have heard nothing. So we finally wrote to the firm and we are yet to get a response. So my concern is, to end on that topic, is if the internal elections is any indication of the respect for the democratic principles under which our country is founded, because it was founded, but whatever you want to say, Eric Williams is still the father of the nation because he did bring us from colonialism to independence, whether you like him or not, and whether there are lots of John O'Halloran's, etc., lurking in the background. He did a lot for the man in the street, the everyday person, to uplift us, because when they left us, Keaton and Sean, many of our forefathers were sleeping on dirt floors, could not read or write, and came here uneducated. There were no secondary schools, and the few that they had were elitist secondary schools, and they did a lot to bring in the Concordat, the hospital. Anyway, I don't want to give a lecture on that. The point is this, that those two issues are very troubling to me, because it speaks to the issue of, if you're going to do that in an internal election, that telegraphs to me your capacity in a national election.
And I think where this ties in, now granted the situation is old, Keaton, but what happened with the PR case that was discontinued in part because of the fact that they found that Sherman McNichols should have recused himself. What about the situation in Miami with the current AG and the fact that, you know, he said I was junior at a time when he was already given the silk. So, and that's just with
another recent one where they got judicial review. Justice Coben said, "Oh, but in January I gave you permission for judicial review." But the reason was, at that time, Reggie Amor was the lawyer representing Central Bank and filed no witness statements.
Right, but my point is conflicts of interest now with regards to leadership in government. And we're seeing as though, I'm not necessarily seeing consequences for these things. I'm not necessarily seeing anything being put forward now to prevent these things from happening.
Do you expect consequences?
Well, I mean, you know, in life generally, when people do things that are questionable or wrong, we expect investigations and potentially consequences if they're proven to be guilty of some sort of crime or infraction. But the fact that we're not seeing it, and we're seeing it unfettered, right? There seems to be, what is really stopping it? Because right now, even public outcry is limited. It's limited on a whole host of pressing issues. So what Karen is bringing up, this is the origin point, but we see the behavior more than once, more than just this, with regards to how important state cases are handled, with regards to important matters that states have handled, with regards to whose building is being rented. And if it was one case, fine, okay, maybe it was a minor matter. But when we see that there are multiple of these things happening, where conflict of interest is now being allowed to just exist, you know, and potentially harming the democratic processes, or proper procurement, or whatever proper governance is in that situation, goes back to what we were saying at the start with regards to, well, how is it that, you know, the cartel is allowed to be controlled? Because the government and the level of corruption is that we allow throughout the years. And it seems as though we don't really have any sort of lever or path to rectify the situation. But more importantly, I don't know, going back to our earlier conversation in the week, if the people really want to rectify it, because I'm not seeing the people crying out against it.
Well, people
I think you want to get a cry out. Keaton, before you answer, because you're very physical expression. Let me just say this, and I don't have any inside information, as they say. but there seems not to be a good relationship with the judiciary and the DPP. But in fairness to the DPP, which they interviewed him, he said, it was in March, this week's newspaper, he said in 2013, he's understaffed, and that to get a full complement of prosecutors also well-trained in different aspects, money laundering, all the different things that we need, and to have the experience, you need at least 137. He was promised it. You know how many he has now? 48. How could the Chief Justice, all due respect to him, talk and act as blindly and ignorantly? There are no prosecutors in this case. Who is responsible? Reggie Amor, to his credit, appointed 20 new lawyers. They are inexperienced. He needs 137, and 3 of them just left.
I'll tell you what, see, talk is cheap. Action is a lot more difficult. And we have very lazy politicians or lazy managers, if you want to put it that way, here in TNT. But let's take a break for news on the hour. And when we return, we open up the phone lines this morning. And I have a question to ask you, the viewer. And guess what? If you get it correct, you get 2 snow mints. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Heavy sargassum seaweed reported along Mayaro Beach. 622 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in last week. UNC calls on PNM to state whether it is paying for Thursday's political broadcast. And internationally, 30 students hospitalized after using Ouija board at Columbia School. Now for the details. Heavy sargassum seaweed has been reported along Mayaro Beach. Since 2011, large amounts of sargassum have invaded the Caribbean every year except 2013, an anomaly that scientists believe may have resulted from a lack of nutrients and a change in wind strength and direction. Although the seaweed itself cannot harm health, tiny sea creatures that live in sargassum can cause skin rashes and blisters. Sea bathers are being advised to exercise caution. 622 new cases of COVID-19 have been recorded in the last 7 days. The rolling 7-day average for cases is now 89. Meanwhile, 8 persons have succumbed to the virus in the last week. The total number of deaths now stand at 4,355, and the rolling 7-day average for deaths is 1. There are currently 75 persons hospitalized with the virus at this time. The PNM must tell the country whether it is paying TTT to broadcast its political meeting this Thursday. So says UNC PRO Kirk Mayhew. Last year in November, Simon Dino Brega answered a question in Parliament from Dr. Rudal Munilal requesting a list of all political broadcasts on taxpayer-funded TTT, the payments made and any payments outstanding for the last fiscal year, October 2021 to September 2022.
This is an unjust abuse of power by the PNM. This is not a government broadcast, but a political one by a political party. This abuse follows a long pattern which must finally be broken and not merely accepted. The UNC calls on the PNM and TTT to state whether the PNM is paying for its broadcast. The required follow-up action will be taken as necessary.
In international news now, nearly 30 schoolgirls have been hospitalized with anxiety attacks after allegedly playing with Ouija boards at their school in Colombia.
There were 28 possible cases of anxiety in school students, said Hugo Torres, head of the Galeras Educational Institution in Galeras, where the incident took place. According to the outlet, alarm bells went off after the girls reportedly suffered signs of fainting, anxiety, and other symptoms at school. They were subsequently admitted to a municipal hospital, accompanied by parents and school faculty. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, the piano girl Johanna here, and I'm inviting you to celebrate International Women's Day with us on Wednesday the 8th of March at Napa, Port of Spain. The name of the event, Woman Power. I'm going to be performing along with other wonderful female artists, and I'm really looking forward to this event. So bring your friends, bring your family, come and enjoy this evening of wonderful entertainment with us. Woman Power, Wednesday the 8th of March at Napa. See you there.
The network of NGOs for the advancement of women and the mayor of Port of Spain, Joel Martinez, presents Woman Power.
So let me tell you about real woman.
International Women's Day, Wednesday, 8th March at the Napa Auditorium. Come and enjoy Vonnet Bigford, Joanna Chuckery, Mavis John, Alicia Jagasaw, Sharda Patasa, and Patrice Roberts. Special guest, David Rudder. Your host is Penny Gomez. Showtime, 7 p.m. Special reserve, 300. General admission, 250. Early bird tickets, if bought by this Saturday, March 4th. Cost $25 less. For more info, call 678-7549.
Well, thank you very much to Miss Denise Martin for news on the hours. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, let's open up the phone line now where you can have the opportunity to join the conversation this morning and talk with us, share with us your thoughts and opinions. Now, over the last 2 days, I've been asking questions as it relates to female first and TNT, and maybe those whom you know, maybe those whom you didn't know, or if you didn't hear of. So this morning, my question to you is, can I get a drum roll, please, Sean?
That's very soft, Sean. I'm not impressed.
Okay. That's just too long of a drum roll. Anyway, she was a journalist and referred to as a revolutionary activist. She's actually credited with founding Notting Hill Carnival. Who is she?
Ooh.
Who is she? That's my question. Call in, join us in Talking Point.
And here is my phone to go to Google it.
Don't cheat. Folks, the phone lines on your screen. Join the conversation. If you want to speak about anything we've spoken about today, if you want to disagree with what I said about equity earlier on, if you want to disagree with regards to what Karen said about the food cartel or the economic cartel, or what we said about the conflicts of interests that we see. I believe in multiple governments to be fair to all politicians, or to equally throw them all under the bus. We have a call on the line from San Fernando. Good morning.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
The first thing, Peter, I would challenge that ILO report that you talked about in 2016 that says middle management and upper management in Trinidad and Tobago, that men would make double what women make. I don't think that is accurate, but we could debate that. I want to check on it.
Sure.
Based on knowing the industry, some of the industries, I think that is not. I wouldn't put 100% on that. However, back to what Karen was talking about, and that those cartels in the that control the food business in Trinidad, because they control the food business in Trinidad, and exactly what she said, Mr. Manning. So I remember hearing Mr. Manning saying that the private sector are not risk takers. So there's a cartel and they control that business, and they have the foreign exchange at their disposal, and the so there's no incentive to move otherwise. And we need Trinidad and Tobago. If you are good, people not understanding how bad this is in terms of food security. When you go to the supermarket, onion, garlic, black pepper, potato, carrots, all the peas that you could think about. And I talking about low-level stuff. We're talking about if you don't have money, that you're going to buy those things. All those things are important,
Yeah.
Salt, flour. We have to take stock of what is happening, and it is fearful if you read this stabilization fund report. The last one was July, I think June or July 2022, and it shows the fall in the amount of money we have inherited in a stabilization fund. It went from 1.9 something to 1.5 something billion. It is frightening to see where we are going. It is frightening, and people need to take stock of this, and the government needs to come up with solutions. Or, as Sean said, people need to start to come out and protest, because we're going down a hill at a speed here that we're going to crash. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a call.
And they are protesting in other countries, by the way. In England, in America, in Europe, they are.
We have a caller on the line with us from Corey Village. Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, you on here?
Yeah, the answer is Claudia Jones.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well done.
Well done, caller. Thank you very much. You can stay on the line.
Ask him if he cheated, because I cheated and I got her name and picture.
Caller, are you still with us? Alright, he's gone. Yes, the correct answer is Claudia Jones. Well done. Well done. Claudia Jones, born in Belmont, Trinidad and Tobago. There's so much history behind what she did as an individual and what she achieved as an activist. But like I said, she was a journalist, she was a revolutionary activist, she was a part of the American Communist Party, and she even moved to the United Kingdom and is credited with establishing the Notting Hill Carnival. So well done to caller from Corey Village. I'll see if I can get another question. That seems as though it was just too easy. I need to get another question. Good morning, caller from Dabadee.
A very pleasant morning and happy International Women's Day to the lone female there and any other female staff you have.
Good morning.
Kind to you. I heard you this morning revealing certain information that you are 101% correct, and I'm very much surprised that it wasn't brought out earlier and disseminated to the wider public. I've been a candidate myself. However, gentlemen, I would continue saying that the issues that we have in the problem is governance. And every morning I'm going to let you all know that you all will need, we will need to find the solutions to these problems. And until we do so, all we're doing is creating plans and letting them collect us. So look forward to the solutions and being part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
So I will say this. It generally starts with we need better governance. To some extent, how do we change that? That's like one of the main root things we have to look at. But let's go after that now. And I think with regards to agriculture, and I was actually thinking about this because you told us the same thing yesterday. I think we need to find that crop, like what is it? Because as the first caller said,
it's not
hard, I know, but we need to settle on something that could be effective, because if basic goods are imported and potentially rising in price, figure out, okay, well, how do we get these things produced locally? Not everything.
It's not only that, Sean. But if you have all these foreign franchises operating in the country, they're using up your foreign exchange.
Yeah.
They're not using your products, and they're paying low-end, jobs, which the 2020 vision never intended, with all this expenditure on education, to create a whole army of young people with an education and working in these places.
I'm sorry, but you said education and already triggered, because from what I understand, we have a serious issue with teacher absenteeism, across the board. Now this is what I heard, so maybe I'm wrong, and somebody could correct me, but across the board in secondary schools, I don't know about primary schools specifically, we have a problem with teacher absenteeism that is significantly impacting the secondary school education our young people are receiving at that level. So we already know that we have issues with tertiary and GATE and all of these other things. But now, as well as the fact that there are other issues with education that I am really worried about, this is just one more.
Do you have statistics to back that up? Because are you speaking from a perspective of one particular school or?
No, more than one school.
Okay, because more than one school
but statistically,
we weren't talking about education in any case.
I know, but you mentioned it, so I just wanted
what the caller talked about, which is when the reason why we have a food insecurity problem is that the government continues to allow a group of the cartel to continue to establish a number of franchises in our country.
One of the first solutions for agriculture and food production here in TNT is that, and a very basic thing is that we must not allocate or allow agricultural lands to be used for commercialized or residential development.
Yes.
And that's where we're doing ourselves an injustice. I'm going to ask a very quick question before we take this caller, since that caller from Corey Village got that correct you. Who was the first woman to represent Trinidad and Tobago in an Olympics? So who's the first female Olympian to represent Trinidad and Tobago?
Please don't Google it.
Yeah, try not to Google it.
Try not to Google it.
We have a caller on the line with us from... Good morning, caller from Chagonas. Hi, good morning.
Good day, gentlemen. Sorry I had to miss your program yesterday, but I had to be in Waterspoon early. But I heard your Tobago speaker, and I had a couple problems with him. He seemed to have a problem against providing accounts to government. But this is a legal requirement for many organizations. Right? And if he want to belong to such an organization, they have to follow the law. He also made a statement that Trinidadians don't eat flying fish. I don't know where he gets from that from. I ate a lot of flying fish. I used to go to Hilo and get it in until the price reached prohibitive. This morning you mentioned we allow our politicians to do something. What do we do? Every politician, every party that have come into power since Johnny Havana and have lost traction in office because of it. The trouble is the opposition is doing no better. And we talk about lazy politicians. We are not lazy politicians. They're just damn crooked. And they know what is supposed to be done, and they don't do it. And they don't have to do it. The public servants do it. All they have to do is make sure they do it. Thank you, gentlemen, unless you have a lady.
Professor, I do not accept your excuse for missing yesterday's show because I had to reach Port of Spain very early and I still didn't miss the show.
Oh God, stop giving the poor man a hand.
Peter, let me just add, and Sean, it's not only the question
Thank you, Professor.
Blaming the government, the ease of doing business. I know of many examples, I'm sure you do, where certain people can pick up the phone and everything happens. And you try to go and they will bring you around roses for the next 3 years until you get.
Well, Karen, the irony is we saw this with the pharmacy licenses and now we're seeing it with the children's home licenses or approvals. To some extent, even the governments can't do it and it gets in their own way. So I don't understand what is it that they can't try, because I do feel that there are a lot of aspects of the bureaucracy and our regulations that are old, outdated, obsolete, and part of what will make ease of doing business better is just to update it. Well, deliberate, right. But
the two examples that you just used with the pharmaceutical license and the children's home licenses, I don't necessarily, especially with the children's home licenses, I can't necessarily blame on the government, at least as yet, because
that's fair.
I'm not satisfied because I have not been given any reasoning as to why there have been these delays.
I don't want to. Can I say I don't want to go down the social welfare program, talk about commerce and what allows our country to have revenue. And when Jamaica allowed the IMF not to stand by but arrange with them, they were able to cut down all the issues of opening a business within 3 days. Why can't we do that? You know why? Because there are certain people who have control of our economy and they want to make sure you can't get in there. And you will spend, I know that of examples, spend 3 years trying to get a license and they can pick up a phone. So let's not pretend. I am not going to pretend because I was inside there. So I have no illusions about what goes on.
It does make whenever you hear a minister speak about, we are for small and micro enterprises, it really makes it difficult to believe when...
The campaign does not stop.
Yeah, right, but I mean, this is the thing about it, when you're literally giving us rhetoric, years before the next general election, and the circumstances, as you said, actions speak louder than words. The actions that I'm experiencing does not line up with what you're saying. Why is this thought of as intelligent campaigning? It's one thing to mama guy me, but don't mama guy me when you could be disproved immediately the next day.
Clearly, you didn't send your 1 kilogram of snails and collect your $5.
I didn't want...
Can I make one suggestion that if you could pursue it? One way for us to find out whether there is income inequality in the country, the economists do it. You have Dr. Roger Hussain, a very competent economist. Let them do what the CSC stopped doing in 1997. Do what they call a Gini coefficient, which will let you know how the revenue that's generated in the country, how it is distributed. You will get your answer then.
We have a caller from...
Mayaro. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
And Miss Karen, the lily of the valley. I just want to say something shortly, briefly, to the man on the ground. Keaton and Sean, look, we're fighting hard. We know pumpkin was selling $15 a pound. In my arrow, you could get pumpkin for $2.50 a pound. How that happened? And right now we're struggling to get prices that is supposed to be regulated. It's confusing the farmers on the ground. And little that we could move with to survive, the economy getting a kickback where it is discouraging you. So where is the cultivation of marijuana and other products that can help focus on regulating and moving our economy? Something is wrong because we're getting hurt more and more. And Karen, you are right. You are dead right. I am telling you this because you know what? This is reality on the ground. The farmers are not being heard. We are not being felt. We're not being seen. Only the big enterprise of arrangement made by government agencies that is keeping the deadlock of not opening the door for farmers in this country. I thank you for your time and your vision. And Keaton and Sean, you are guys, we look upon you guys for the direction. And you are the future. So be safe, and Keaton, be careful how you move around with the public domain. It is very ticklish, and you have to be keen because you are sincere. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, caller.
Yeah. And the one thing I would like to say is, whilst we are focal on agriculture, we can take that this conversation, as Hilaire said, to looking at other avenues for earning foreign exchange and what are the barriers, and it's the cartel is the barrier, and how is the cartel able to do it? Because they control the government.
And we also had the president of Tobago Fisherfolk yesterday, Karen, and to some extent he was also bemoaning difficulties he's had with just, we have concerns, no one is taking them on. One has to ask, really and truly again, where is the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries? We don't really hear much out of them at a
Is
time when we
Is
have
he
food
still there?
insecurity and food prices.
Is Clarence Lamarat still there?
No,
I'm
no, no,
asking.
Kazim was.
Is he
See,
there?
this is the, you know, Karen, you are the second
is it
person
Karen
that
Lamarat?
asked in a matter of hours who asked me, wait, who is the Minister of Agriculture? And it's
No, but where's Clarence? You know, where's Waldo? Where's Clarence?
No, remember
Kazim
left.
is the Minister of Agriculture, Land and
Clarence
Fisheries.
Lamarat resigned, yes?
Yes. And then, of course, Avinash Singh is the Junior Minister of Agriculture.
They don't have another junior minister as well?
There was one other, and his name...
Yeah, so many ministers, and we hear nothing.
Good morning, caller. Good morning, caller. Final caller for the morning. Morning.
Laura P.
Excellent.
And I've seen that there was a short documentary done on her in 2020 on another station.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much. Yes, Laura Pear, at the age of 16 years old, represented Trinidad and Tobago as the first female Olympian at the 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany, in the 200-meter track and field event. She was born on January 13th, 1956, in the town of Arima. Well done, caller from San Fernando. Yes, Laura Pear at the age of 16 years old. I need to buy a bag of snowmans because I'm losing out plenty this week. But no, I'm actually happy. I'm glad a lot of people are keen to answer. A lot of people are calling in and actually answering these questions, and that's good because all this is actually part of social studies, you know, so well done, caller.
I do, just to sidetrack us just a little bit, I do wonder if we really do not take our history. Yeah, we know all the big moments in time. We were colonies and the slave trade and the sugar and the indentureship and all of that, and then the immigrants and whatever that. You know, these very specific major chunks that isn't that detailed when we get down to it. But what about, you know, our leaders, the accomplishments? Yes, some of us might remember some of it. But really and truly, do we celebrate it enough? Do we give it the respect that it deserves? Do we look to the new infant that's now starting primary school and the primary school students? Look at what these people accomplished, you know, just to inspire them to show, well, hey, it's a small country, but look how much we've done on the world stage. You know, the sky's the limit. Just because you're in a small country doesn't mean you have to limit yourself. So do we do it enough? I don't know. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why we as a society, we tolerate so much, we take so much, and we don't complain. It's one of the reasons why. There's probably more than one. But perhaps that might be part of it. We don't complain a lot because we don't have high expectations of our leaders. Because some of us don't even have high expectations for ourselves.
True.
Well
There is truth in that too.
Well said.
Oh, look, Keaton give you a well said.
You see, I had to give him the well said because if you realize this morning, I've actually stayed more quiet than active.
Yes, I know.
You know, I've been taking in everything. There's so many things on my mind, and it's very difficult to just relate all these things in just an hour and a half. So you must forgive me this morning. So, Sean,
you're good.
Well said, and of course, again, to all our callers, thank you for the contribution. So, as we conclude talking point for this morning, Karen and Shara, it's good seeing you once more. I'm sorry I missed you last week, but I'm glad to be here.
And I missed you too.
And thank you very much for your contribution and your continued support of Talking Point. Happy International Women's Day, by the way. So,
yeah, well.
And Sean Michael Small.
Well, I mean, we've said a lot, but I do think the caller that called us out, you know, we have to try to be solution oriented. It's difficult. It's difficult because, of course, we lack a lot of the information. We lack the detailed. So part of what we're doing is we're speculating, reasonable speculation. Karen has experience. We could look at other examples to see how these things go. Dutch disease is a model that we could look at with regards to oil and gas. But you're right. We do have to look at solutions. However, we do need the population to also start to get on board. And I think at the end
of the day, government to be able to implement and enforce. Enforce.
I understand that, but I think We need the starting point, the basic starting point, I think, comes to the population expecting and demanding more. And if necessary, choosing better. We saw what Tobago did. Right now, we don't necessarily have those options for the general, at least not yet.
Well, personally, I think it starts with a paradigm shift. You know, whether it be...
Not a paradigm shift.
You know what? English language is a hell of a thing. Ladies and
That
gentlemen...
sounds like hyperbole.
This has...
Hyperbole. That sounds like hyperbole, Karen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Talking Point. I'm Keaton Shaw. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning, hopefully. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I am Kemuel Pascal, and we are WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS,